There's a new piece of art by Sam Weller that's really awesome. So let me know if you guys like this, because if you like it, then I'll put it on a t-shirt. If you guys want this on a t-shirt, let me know. If there's a big response from you guys, then I'll put it on a t-shirt. Mountain. Train the muscles, not the joints. Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to talk to you about adaptation. Adaptation. Now, we all know that basically when you work out or when you exercise, you are using the adaptation principle of the body, because the body is made to adapt to the environment that it's in. Such as right now, I'm standing in the woods and I'm getting bitten by a lot of mosquitoes, and I'm sure there will be some sort of adaptation that takes place if I survive it. I am Mosquito Man. Assuming I don't get malaria or something, right? So the bottom line is that when you stimulate a muscle, it will grow in a certain way. Now, how you stimulate or how you force it to adapt will depend on how you perform the exercise, the reps you use, also the environmental factors such as diet, sleep, stress levels, all these things, they all play a role in how your body adapts. But what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today is about how you adapt your body to an exercise and vice versa, because a lot of times people don't think about the vice versa. All they think about is, I have to force my body in order to do a certain exercise or to move a certain way, but I don't actually adapt that exercise to the way that my body naturally wants to move. This is a really, really secret principle, and this is a principle most are too stubborn to use, and most are too stubborn to realize in their training until they break themselves a number of times, and then they're like, oh, well, that training thing doesn't work. I don't want to do that anymore. Well, I've gotten so many different emails from people that say this because they're so frustrated because they were trying to do something a certain way, and no matter how many times they did it, no matter how much physiotherapy they did, no matter how much stretching they did, no matter how many things they did in their life to make sure they could adapt to that exercise, it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. No matter how many experts they supposedly saw, their body just continued to break. Now, sometimes it's a dietary factor, sometimes it's a genetic factor, sometimes there's lots of different things. But one thing that you can experiment with is changing or adapting the exercise to your body type, finding a way to do it in a way that it seems to stimulate your body more so and beat it to death less so. Right? Seems like common sense, right? Seems like logic, but apparently this logic is lost in most of the fitness field, and usually it's lost in the people that are in the beginning stages a lot of times because the ego is such a big factor when you're trying to train in the beginning, right? Everything's about ego. It's about being better than the other person, being the best at something, and that something has to be the constant that everybody compares, right? Everybody compares themselves. I can do that one something better than you can, and that something has to be the same for everyone in order for that comparison to happen. Now, once you outgrow that whole ego game, then you say, okay, what works better for me? Who cares about comparing? What works better for me to sculpt my physique in a way that is truly artistic for me and at the same time does not break my body at the same time. Case in point, I had to do low bar 90-degree squats in order for my knees and back and everything to feel fine. If I broke that mold, and I did for years, I did high bar squats and I squatted as low as I could possibly go, which is basically parallel or lower, and it just seemed to basically inflame my knees. It didn't do anything positive for my physique. If anything, it actually made it go backwards. So that said, my physique demanded a different type of squat form, and it was a squat form that I always fell back upon, and it just happens to be the form that everybody hates. But the bottom line is that it produced bigger legs and it produced the results I was looking for. So another thing you could consider, like say when you're doing a bicep curl, a lot of people are like, okay, you just do a bicep curl, elbows at your side, just curl the weight. And that is the best way to grow arms, is you keep those elbows back. Now, a lot of times I found that to be true, but I started to cater the exercise a little bit more to hitting the mountain. So basically what I would do is externally rotate a little bit, and I found that it hit the long head of the bicep and the belly that I was trying to hit more so just by making that small adaptation of the exercise to my body type. So this type of dumbbell curl is fine, just straightforward, you know, that's good. It's good for a lot of people. Sometimes I find coming a little bit more in sometimes could be the trick for some people, right? That's good. Squeezing the bicep, right? But I always find when I get my shoulders back and then come out a little bit, I take a little bit of the front delta of the movement and put more stress on the muscle belly of the bicep. It doesn't have to be extreme. But the thing is, if it doesn't work for you, if this hurts your shoulders, then don't do it. Because you're just not built for this type of movement, but I find this better. I'm ready to get in the pump. Mountain. That way the dumbbells weren't hitting the sides of my legs, and at the same time I was getting that contraction in that belly rather than more the forearm. Now, I need more forearm work like I need another hole in the head, right? So my forearms are fine. So the bottom line is that when I did that, my biceps grew. And that's why I like incline curls, and that's why I like to externally rotate just a little bit, sometimes during standing dumbbell curls. Yeah, you can adapt the exercise to your body type. If you're not feeling this supposedly perfect form, you know, that perfect form that people are telling you about on a certain exercise, and they're saying, you know, this is how you do it, and then you perform that exercise, and no matter how many times you do it, you're doing the exercise for 6 months, you performed that technique, and you're still getting broken or you're not getting results, don't be afraid to change it up a little bit, as long as you're not changing it into dangerous territory. We all see those gym memes where people are doing just insane type stuff in the gym, and jumping around and using like the chin-up bar like a trapeze and then landing on their head or whatever. Like, so I'm not saying to do that, but what I am saying is just by subtle shifts of the angles, subtle shifts in how you perform it. Maybe it's grip, maybe it's the arc, right? So some people, they press straight up and down when they're bench pressing for bodybuilding, and then for powerlifting, they go right to the eyes. Maybe you need to do something that's a happy medium in between. Don't be afraid to deviate from the perfect form just a little bit and see if you get more of a response from the body. I had to do this when it came down to French curls. I did French curls a long time ago, skull crushers, and I was basically doing heavyweight, trying to get those triceps to grow. And I noticed that when I was doing heavyweight right to the forehead, I was getting elbow inflammation. And this happens to guys all the time. This is why you see people with elbow wraps. They're always like inflaming their elbows. They don't know why their elbows are a mess, because they're not adapting the exercise to their body type. Some people seem to do better with the elbows more up towards the forehead than down by the chest. And if you go too aggressive down to the chest, you basically lever, you use the bicep as a lever to break that elbow apart, and then you get elbow problems. So just by doing one small shift in the exercise, not only do you transfer more of the stress to the belly of the tricep, but you're also taking some of that stress or unneeded abusive stress off the elbow. So this is something to consider, especially as a bodybuilder. You have the freedom to do this. If you're powerlifting, maybe you don't have as much freedom, but you still see powerlifters changing their grip on bench press depending on which one they feel stronger with, or changing their stance in the squat. Sometimes they're wider, sometimes they're narrower, or they place the bar lower on the back or higher on the back, depending on how they're built. So at the elite level, this adaptation is taking place all the time. You just don't notice it. Most beginners won't notice it. They just think there's just a standard proper form for everything, and there's no deviations from that. But if you start to experiment, you will find that there will be these magical movements, sometimes almost secret movements for you, that actually produce twice the results than doing that movement the way it was done before, right? Or supposedly the proper way. So don't be afraid to experiment around. I always say this, but it really is relevant. And I play around with stuff all the time. That's why you see me do something different. Sometimes I'm saying, oh, I'm just doing this today just because I haven't done it for 5 years and I just want to try it out and see how my body adapts to it now based on the conditions that it's under now. I do this all the time. And I still land on some constant techniques that I found were right for my body type. And sometimes it changes a little bit just because now my injury history is different from the hockey career and all that. Well, that wasn't a career, it was a hobby, my hockey hobby. And sometimes my body likes something different too. Sometimes just doing something different will hit or stimulate a different part of the body that needs stimulation at this time. So anyway, I hope this helps you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com and take care. Mountain.